back to Uncovering Possibilities. My name is Ogechi Ukazu, and I'm here with Mike Lebrias, a.k.a. Bro, it's Mike.
It's Mike, yeah, bro.
All right, cool. Can you introduce yourself to our audience, people who might not know you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Mike Lebrias. I'm currently in the second year of the DMA in wind conducting here at the University of Texas. I taught for 4 years high school band and orchestra in Tampa, Florida at Hillsborough High School from 2015 to 2019. After that time, I decided to get my master's degree in conducting at the University of South Florida, which is also where I got my undergrad. Halfway through the first year of my master's degree, COVID hit. That second year was kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen next, you know? So what I was venturing through every single possibility, applying for jobs in Texas, applying for jobs all throughout Florida, even considered some military gigs, you know, military auditions. But I had applied to one grad school for the DMA program, and that was this place. One of my mentors for my master's degree, who also works here now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
Which is pretty cool. We had conversations about, you know, going on to DMA and just seeing what that would be like. And so I was like, I really only want to go to one place, and if it doesn't work out, then, you know, I'll find something else to do. So it ended up working out. But yeah, I've entered this place, and I've gotten to meet a lot of people and learn a lot of new things about myself and about, you know, how the world works. I mean, obviously we still have a lot to learn, and I still have a lot to learn, but that's kind of how I got here.
That's what's up. So a Florida boy in Texas. How is Florida man in Texas? Whoa, wait. So, like, tell me, like, how it's been different. Like, I want to kind of talk about this.
Sure.
Like, you had your teaching time in Florida primarily, and you've been here for a couple of years now, and just, like, the culture, the environment, people, like, what are some big things that maybe stand out to you?
Yeah.
Similar and different.
Well, being around Central Texas and seeing how many faculty members are on, like, even just a public school, like a middle school, high school, there's, like, 3 or 4 band directors sometimes.
Right.
You know, I was the only music teacher when I was teaching.
Oh, wow.
So I had 2 concert bands, 1 orchestra. I taught after school jazz band. I had a marching band and a marching band staff that I hired, but I was like where the buck stopped, you know?
Right.
And so when it came to decisions for the program, I would have myself to consult, maybe my boosters and, you know, my admin, but I was prepping, you know, 12 pieces for assessment in the spring, like consistently. So
Wow. I mean, for the people in our audience who aren't music educators,
Sure.
So you're coming from, you know, a state where maybe they didn't pump as much like resources into the, like you're saying, the staffing. So you're the only person there.
Yeah.
You come to Texas and you're saying like 4 and 5 men,
yeah,
6 men staffs in some cases.
right.
And yeah, it's quite different.
Yeah, it's very different. And there's a culture for community in music. It's not just the band directors, but there's also private lessons teachers and studios that all of these students get to interact with, you know, and it's just a great opportunity. And I think that's like, it's fantastic, but, you know, not everybody has the same kind of resources, but I think there were different ways that I try to incorporate some of that model when I was teaching high school. I mean, like I brought in private lessons teachers.
Yeah.
There was like a woodwind day and a brass day. That's something that I got from one of my mentors from when I was student teaching. It was like, he would bring in private lessons teachers because he also was trying to model this same exact thing. There was like a day where it would literally be, you go out and do master classes, and they would just work on fundamentals. You know, it was group lessons, but it wasn't individual, but it was still better than nothing, you know, because when you think about it, as a music educator, a lot of those students aren't taking private lessons. You know, I had a good amount of students taking private lessons, but for a lot of those students, I was felt music education. I was it, you know, so who is the person to tell them pedagogical things?
You, right.
You know,
That's, man. You know, and I wanted to bring that up to establish that you are, like, your expertise is in music education.
Yep.
And you're an extremely talented and smart and intelligent and thoughtful educator.
Thank
And that I very much admire. But the reason we're here today is to talk to you about something else that you've kind of established yourself in,
Okay.
which is social media.
I've been on it for a while,
Mhm.
and I had just been a consumer of it.
Right.
So I had scrolled through Reels like everybody else does, scrolled through TikToks like everybody else does, and it was critical mass consumption was during COVID, obviously. So
Like much of,
yeah, like a lot of us.
Right.
You know, we all kind of got into something to pass the time, and TikTok was kind of the way to do that. And so I've been on TikTok for about a year, not posting anything because it's like, what do I have to say? Like literally nothing.
I mean, okay.
Yeah,
Well, yes,
we'll get
yeah,
there,
we'll get there.
But like
Right,
at that
right,
point in
right.
time during COVID, I was like, what am I gonna say? Nothing, And so the way that I approach life is I start to try and figure out and reverse engineer how people do things, especially if it's really high quality. You know, when we all sit and win ensemble rehearsal,
Right.
you know, we try to figure out and reverse engineer what professor's doing, you know, and so that's always been a thing about the way that I think is like, how did they achieve this level of success? And so I just started figuring out what was, I guess, high quality social media posts, or what was like keeping my interest throughout those 15 seconds. And I tried to create some content in that market. You know, it was like, that is a very specific niche, is conducting and band, but it's also, it seems like it's a really big niche in terms of like, it's isolated. Yeah, who's going to know what I'm talking about? But I also, over the years, have figured out that it's really not that big of a niche, because you think about how many students currently there are in the school band programs in America right now. There's a lot. And then you magnify that by taking a step back, and over the years, how many people have been through the school band process at some point in time, whether that be one semester of it, or they went all the way through high school, maybe even played in college. Like, a lot of people have gone through school band and have that experience, shared experience. The traction I'm getting is because people can relate to it. I don't know, it just kind of like caught fire one day.
That's a really good point you make about just some connection, just some sort of like even one semester, or let's say you were on a football team or basketball team and you had, you know, athletic bands there performing. So everybody in one way or another has a connection, and you're saying that your content is able to connect with them, even if they have the most like cursory, fleeting like connection with. That's a very insightful idea that you. Okay, so what platforms are you on right now?
So I started.
Where can people find you?
Sure,
I started like stuff we usually say for the end.
Yeah, of course. But I usually make my short form content catered to TikTok and to Instagram.
Right.
I started on TikTok, and that's kind of how this whole thing started. I mean, before caught fire on Instagram, it was mostly just TikTok. I was just making videos native to my cell phone. You know, I didn't have a camera set up. I didn't have audio set up like you do here, but I had a phone and some ideas.
Right.
And that's it. That's how I started. I started on TikTok, and I started just making, you know, things that I thought were funny, and that evolved into educational content, and like how I did things, you know. And I always try to put a disclaimer out there whenever I do something educational. It's like, this is not the only way to do this. You know, it's just the way that I do it, and it's just the way that I've found success. And because, you know how the internet is.
Yes.
The internet can be a brutal place.
Absolutely.
Of people that are, you know, experts.
Yeah.
And I don't pretend to be an expert. I just say, this is what has worked for me.
Right.
You know, and if you choose to take that as information, then great.
Okay, so you said you started, you know, putting stuff that was more kind of personal to you, stuff that you thought would connect. But when did you really decide, and why did you decide that your presence could be used for more? And when I say more in quotation, because I mean, I don't know exactly what that more is for you, but
so I've just been creating TikTok videos for the better part of a year. I mean, when I started January 21. Wait, hold on. No, not 21, 22. So it was.
This is just like a year ago?
Yeah, well, because I mean, all of fall in my first year here,
Okay.
I didn't really do any TikToks.
Okay. Yeah.
And then like I was at home in Florida over winter break, and then I was just scrolling through one day, and I decided to just make a video one day.
Right.
Because I was bored.
Right.
And it kind of spiraled into me just consistently putting out videos. And I wasn't trying to become TikTok famous. I wasn't trying to, you know, be an influencer or anything like that. It's just kind of how it happened. But yeah, I started making all these videos, and eventually I just wanted to create something that was, I guess, relatable to people, but also put information out there, because I figured, you know, I learn a lot of stuff from these shorts, and stuff that I wouldn't have thought of before, or somebody just put some information out there that I'm like, oh, I've never thought of it like that.
Right.
So I was like, what would that look like for band, for conducting? You know, because I think about how information is disseminated in academia. And it's like, you hear something one time in class and then it's gone, unless you write it down, and then even then, when you try to remember it, it's like all these different filters through that information. But I decided to put out educational content because I want more people to understand what we do.
That's really cool. So this is like maybe another avenue for your music education. It's like, and how you can connect with people you teach in some regard.
In a sense, it's like advocacy. I mean, because I've gotten messages from folks that are not directly related to the medium at all. I got a phone call from somebody just this past week when I was in Houston for like a powerlifting competition to watch my coach. But like I got a phone call from this person who was like, Mike, I just wanted to tell you that one of my friends that has nothing to do with music caught one of your reels on Instagram and said, I love watching this guy.
Oh, and I was like, so cool. All right. So can you share with us some people that have been in touch with you, like some stories that maybe...
Yeah, of course. Me being a Filipino American, like I've gotten lots of messages about thank you for, because representation matters, and this is something that I experienced, you experienced.
Yeah.
Like at the Dallas Winds when you were conducting a fanfare. I mean, that memory is like ingrained in me because those students were so excited to see you up there doing something that they thought to be really cool.
Yeah.
And so I've gotten messages from Filipino Americans, from music major students that are Filipino, or like people from the Philippines too. Like me wearing a barong for a concert was crazy.
Yeah.
Which again isn't crazy on that side of the world, but me doing it in America and representing the culture had, I think, significant impact. And I think representation does matter because when I was growing up, I didn't really have that. My band directors were largely white, males, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I was missing something, like a model, and a role model of somebody who looked like me doing what I wanted to do. So at CBDNA, for example, I was really, really lucky to see two of my former students perform at UGA. There was one of my former students was performing in the conducting workshop that they were holding at CBDNA, and one of my other students was performing with Frostwind Ensemble. And it was so rewarding to see them, but they're both Asian American. And we, decided to meet up after the Frost concert and just take a picture, just because like they're my former students and really proud to see what they're doing nowadays, and enjoying music. And they both sound great,
Yeah.
But one of them, just said this off the cuff and was just like, I didn't appreciate having a Southeastern Asian band director as much as I should have when I was in high school. And I was like, whoa. That like hit me pretty hard.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But also it kind of reaffirmed both my like social media ventures and like doing what I want to do and being me doing it. There's not any kind of thing that I want to conform to. I just want to be Mike, and I want to fully embrace my culture because, and I'll say this, and this is really sad to say, and when I think about it too, is like when I was going through band in high school, it's not that I felt unsafe being myself culturally. It's just there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me that had the same culture as me, and so I just kind of assimilated because I was young, I didn't know, and I didn't fully embrace my Filipino culture until like I grew up, and I feel like I'm catching up on that. And so I'm doing all this because I don't want somebody else to go through what I went through. Because when I look back at it, it's like, it's kind of messed up because I didn't deny that part of my culture. I just didn't let it shine. I didn't let it be part of me. But the other kind of messages that I get are from teachers or from people who are like really inspired, even just being at Midwest or TMEA where people recognize me and they say they really enjoy my content, or they say that I'm like really inspiring. I'm not looking for that kind of validation, although it's really nice. Whenever somebody gives me a message like that, I say, thank you for the kind words. That's like the first thing I say, no matter who says it to me, because they're really kind words. I mean, I really appreciate, you watching the videos and being inspired by them. I don't want to have an inflated sense of self. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. And so, I don't want to deflect somebody's like compliments either.
Absolutely.
So I think with that, there have been upcoming music educators or like people that are student teaching that have asked me to, Zoom with them and give them some advice. Or I had somebody, that was going for an instrumental conducting master's audition, ask me for advice. And I've had like teachers, and one in specific that I can think of, send me a message over Instagram and said, hey, I've been feeling really burnt out lately. the profession just seems like it's bogged down with hierarchy and hierarchical, structures. And I'm feeling really burnt out in that aspect. But it's really nice to see somebody being so passionate about music and passionate about rehearsal. Even if I can live vicariously through these videos, like, thank you.
And that's the thing. One of the things I really admire and appreciate about you, just how thoughtful and kind and caring and just about people and the profession of music and teaching. I mean, all the things, all the good things, all the ideals. How do you protect yourself from the criticism? Because that's a real thing. Like, because you're very, very, like, you're an open book and you're very thoughtful, but that requires a sense of like lack of cynicism, a lack of, you know what I mean? And then you have people that are just mean online because they're jerks.
Yeah, it's easy to be a keyboard warrior.
Yeah,
It's because there's no like repercussions.
right.
There's no face-to-face conversation.
Yeah,
Keep the same energy kind of thing.
absolutely.
And I think I'm okay with that, to be honest. Because it's like, it's at the end of the day, I boil it down to text on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
And do I need to impress this person?
Right.
Not really.
They really had a problem there.
Yeah, if they really
should talk, they would talk.
They would. Yeah, if they truly had a problem with it, then my DMs are open.
Right.
That's just how it is. But
Right.
but also, I don't seek validation from comments. I mean, that's what I said. That's why I said before. It was like, even though I get all these messages that are like, "Thank you for being so inspirational," or "Thank you, I'm using this in my classroom." Like, I think that's great. If the people who are supporting me think what I'm doing is, especially, we had this concept of when BJ Gupta was here, mirrors.
Right.
If somebody that I really, really trust, like any of my colleagues in the conducting studio said to me, he's like, "Mike, that's not it," then I would seriously consider like taking something down or changing the way that I thought about something, because you care about me enough to give me that criticism honestly. And it's like, thank you. Again, I'm not seeking validation from some user 5601825 online.
Right.
It's just, they have an opinion, they posted some comment, and it's like, okay, I'm moving on with my day.
Gotcha.
And so also, we're going to have CIS, course instructor surveys
Right.
eventually in our career, and people are going to be mad about something.
About anything. You're right.
So it's like,
have to be able to
if I can take some TikTok comments and haters, I could probably take some, CIS.
Right.
But all that stuff is, I say that in jest, but also protecting myself and protecting my peace.
Yes, that part.
I try not to let it live in my head. Those comments can't live rent free in my head. They can't, because otherwise I would have stopped what I'm doing a long time ago. I have felt that doing what I'm doing has a much greater purpose than if one person was like, well, that's wrong, or that's, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's one person,
Right.
versus the views that I get, versus like all of the great and like complimentary comments. Even though you can think about 3 negative comments way more, I just look at objectively the sheer number of comments.
Recently, we're talking about like within months of this taping, your social media profiles have just exploded, taken off.
Right.
What do you credit that to?
There's a little bit of everything kind of mixed in. I mean, there's luck, obviously, but at the beginning of this year, like I said, in January 22 is when I started creating content, but that was like a part-time thing. It was like whenever I felt like posting something, I just posted it. But as I continued to be on social media and lived in a space and gained a following, I mean, when I hit 10,000 followers on TikTok, that was, I think, December 22. And at that time, I was like, okay, well, I have a big enough following on TikTok, maybe I should take content creation a little bit more seriously. And so at that time, I was like, okay, well, maybe I should invest in a camera. Maybe I should invest in a lens. Maybe I should like research some more about what good social media is. And so going back to what I was saying earlier is like, I'm really interested in what the best people at what they do, I'm really interested in what makes those products that they make good.
Yeah.
It's not just, yeah, that person's just really talented at social media. This person's really good at making reels. This person's really good at making shorts. How? Why? I just want to reverse engineer that and figure it out. And so I'm really lucky to be surrounded by a lot of powerlifting social media specialists. I mean, my powerlifting coach has 28,000 plus on Instagram.
Wow.
There's a few others at the gym that I train with that have over 20, 30, 40, 50,000 on TikTok and on Instagram. So it's like they put out content and that's really good. And I'm interested in it, obviously. So it's like, well, how do I do that for what I do? You know, because they have an audience that's strictly in powerlifting. And so how do I create an audience and cater to my audience, but have the same kind of video quality, the same kind of like interest level? It's just in my specific niche. And so I started researching that. I looked up videos on how to keep a viewer's attention for short form media, because that's basically what I specialize in, is short form content, because I didn't start making the dive into long form content until really recently. The rehearsal snippets have done the best in terms of like getting traction and getting onto the algorithms, because people are sharing them, people are interacting with them, likes, people are watching them all the way because they're interesting. It's just me researching what does well, how to format it in a way that's like consumable and important. So like you'll see all these little captions on my videos, and they're only like 2 or 3 words at a time, because that just makes your brain keep, it's like, what is he going to say next? What is he going to say next? You know, it's like having captions on Netflix. It's like, oh, I'm waiting for the next thing. There's a little bit of psychology into that, but also people are really interested, I think, in how the sausage is made when it comes to rehearsal. And, you know, every single professional development you've ever been to says that it's about the process and not the product. But sometimes I guess a lot of people just post the product. Actually, this goes back to Team EA. I was walking around, you know, the Grand Hyatt. Somebody stops me and he goes, you know, I really respect your content because like you're not afraid to put it out there. And what they were talking about was like, there's some warts in rehearsal because it's rehearsal. When I started making that kind of content, I tried to make sure that those videos had some sort of arc. There was a diagnosed problem, I said something, and then there was even a video where it didn't work, where I said something, it didn't work, and then I had to reframe what I said to get the result. And that was the arc of the video. And I tried to make that like story arc before I even started editing. I mean, that's basically my thing now, is like I would like to post more rehearsal videos about concepts that I feel like I know are contested. I mean, like Tyler's back here and we laugh all the time about quarter note triplets, because when we first started reading the Longhorn concert band music, I think this cycle, there's like quarter note triplets appearing in every piece.
Were they doing the da da da?
Yeah, it was just team, you know, the clave rhythm.
Right, exactly.
That is such a funny thing, but like everybody struggles with it.
Yeah.
And you know, going back to some of those comments that you were talking about earlier, somebody commented like, "Oh, a college band can't do quarter note triplets," and it's like, that's not the point of the video.
Right.
Like, why is that the first thing that is just like, this is just me putting this information out there so everybody can kind of understand it. And it was just an exercise. You know, they can play triplets, but at that moment, I just wanted to unify how we were interpreting the triplet. And so it's like, go inside and touch some grass.
It's so true. You made like this kind of jump from TikTok to Instagram to now you're on YouTube with long form content. How do you like tailor your content for each platform? He's talking about formatting for that. And, like, I'm sure you're still learning about you know, about each of those, but how are those platforms different? Can you just like maybe touch briefly on?
It's so strange.
Yeah,
it's so strange because some content that does really well on one platform will not do as well. It won't get the same amount of traction.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. I will say that there are some overlaps in terms of like what goes viral. One that has had a lot of success on TikTok immediately was the dynamics video, where I talked about the clarinets being like too loud, and the quote of that video is "one notch louder than silence." That video hit 1 million views on TikTok within like a day, maybe like even the span of like 6 to 7 hours. That was a lot of reach in a short amount of time. It still hasn't hit anywhere close to 1 million views on Instagram.
What? That's weird. What?
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I don't know. It's the algorithms are different, you know, so recommended or for you pages are different, you know, the way that they disseminate that. And Instagram, I feel like, because I still get notifications for videos that I posted like way back. There was that video that I posted when I first started cross-posting, you know, where I'm finishing up on the Cowboys and Jerry comes up and goes, acceptable.
Yeah.
Which I think is a hilarious video.
It's awesome. Yeah.
But that was really the first video that got a ton of traction on Instagram.
Was it because of Jerry?
I think it's just because it's a funny video, but also because it's Jerry. You know, because like he is just a funny guy himself.
Right.
You know, because he walked up there deadpan and was like, acceptable. I had just finished the run of the piece. You know, it was the first time I didn't memorize it. It was just like acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was hilarious. But that still gets, you know, likes today. And that was I posted that mid-January, maybe.
I remember when you first posted that, and it did pretty well, but then
I reposted it. Yeah,
I reposted.
Well, that was I posted it first on TikTok like a year ago when actually in the summer of 22.
Okay.
I remember when I did it initially. I was hanging out in Denton for some reason, but I posted it then, and it got a lot of traction then. But you know, every now and again, I'll repost a video that did well, especially since I have a larger audience now.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know, and so I reformatted it so it was more consumable, and you know, there was like this crazy effect in the middle of that with the horn trail, but like I reformatted it so it was like more watchable, more consumable.
Gotcha.
And
it
took off.
Yeah.
You know, but that video on Instagram has like almost 90. I think it's got over 90K likes.
Wow.
I haven't checked the views on it in a while, but on TikTok, it's like way less. So it's different. You know, it depends. It depends on what the algorithm picks up and who it sends out to. Because sometimes I'll post a video on the TikTok and it won't even crack 10,000 views. Instagram, for me, has been pretty consistent. You know, whenever I post a reel about rehearsal or some performance or like a snippet of my long form content, that does pretty well. Usually gets to 10,000 views. Sometimes gets to 1,000 likes at least, you know, and so it's just different per thing. And then YouTube Shorts is something that I've started to do just to increase my YouTube following. So I started my YouTube channel in January when I first got my camera, and I haven't been consistent with it, but I'm sitting at like 400 followers now on YouTube. But some of those videos, some of the long form videos are getting a lot of play, like the Southern Harmony videos, I think over 1,500 views at this point. YouTube Shorts is like, I'm still trying to understand it, you know? And so the way I format each video is pretty much the same. There's a certain quality that you should do with certain ones, like with YouTube Shorts. I don't go anywhere past 1080p resolution.
Wow. Okay. So we're talking about like technical things that can even help push your content out to the algorithm.
And I watched somewhere or I read somewhere that like higher quality videos on Instagram do really well. And so a lot of my content that did really well were videos that I filmed in 4K and exported in 4K. But I'll export the same video in 1080p, put it on YouTube Shorts, and then I won't have to battle with quality. Because there was this weird thing where I would try to upload a 4K video onto YouTube Shorts, and like the quality would be so like weird and like
so you don't need to worry
pixelated.
The quality as much.
Not as much, just because it's like, you know, they're not meant for YouTube Shorts, at least are not meant for like you to stare at the whole day. In fact, if it's longer than a minute, they're gonna post it as a regular YouTube video. So if it's under a minute, they'll consider it a short.
We now sure have a lot of people who are like, okay, where do I start?
Oh man,
you know what I mean? What advice would you give to particularly academics who might be looking to push their own expertise?
Programs.
I mean, in any field.
I spent time researching this,
right?
And if it's like important to you, then and you would really like to get into it, you just got to spend time studying it. It seems silly to study social media, but we live in a consuming society. You know, that's why short form content has taken off the way that it has, and that's why there's so many users on TikTok, so many users on Reels, and that's why a lot of Instagram nowadays is Reels and not just, you know, what it started as was just like cute little pictures of your friends. You know, and it's like I still post those, but for the most part, people are consuming Reels because it's like it keeps your attention. You know, and you're on the app for longer, and so there's that. So it's like do the research. Learn how to video edit or have somebody that knows how to video edit, know the capabilities of your camera. When I first got my mirrorless camera for content creation, there was like so many buttons and so many settings. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I asked I default to my powerlifting coach who, you know, knows all this stuff about cameras, and I just asked him like what settings should I be using, and just be curious about if you really want to do something right, just do the research on it. I mean, I spent probably a day and a half watching YouTube videos about my camera. And you could even do that for like, you don't even have to have a mirrorless camera to do all this. In fact, I'm releasing a video pretty soon about how to record conducting footage. Because I get that question a lot, is how do you record your footage for conducting rehearsal and performance? And so I went through and made a video on just that. About, I didn't start using, a mirrorless camera. I started with my phone. I started with, simple camcorders like this. You just need to know the capabilities of the camera. And again, when I was only using my phone, I researched the capabilities of my iPhone camera, and I figured out, how to control exposure, how to figure out, autofocus and all that stuff. Like, there's huge capability in your pocket that a lot of people just don't understand, like the depth behind their camera and their phone and how powerful it is.
Yeah.
So just look it up.
I want to say the thing about you that's so like attractive is just your authenticity. Can you talk a little bit about that?
When I post content from rehearsal, I'm not going off a script. Like, it's just, I can't. That would come off as inauthentic.
Yes.
I take snippets from rehearsal, and I just post.
Like, interesting, or
I think that would be funny. Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, even when I did that short reel when Jerry was doing Nobles in the Mystic Shrine last semester, he didn't have a script. I was just recording him.
He's 1 of 1.
And he is 1 of 1 for sure. But there are plenty of conductors in the band realm that are so interesting at rehearsal.
Yes.
I've thought this too. It's like, what if somebody just had a camera on them?
Yeah.
Because when I posted that Nobles in the Mystic Shrine video on the ET Band's Instagram, I had so many comments that were like, can we get more of this?
I was, okay, we seriously do need to just have I know. I mean, people just need to see that man in action.
Yeah.
There are pieces that start off, you're like, I don't know how he's going to do this. I don't know how this is going to end up the way it's going to end up.
There are so many.
There are
so many just like incredible rehearsers, incredible conductors that are way better than me.
Yeah.
Not putting out content because, it's not anybody's fault.
Right. They're just something that they are.
It's just not something that they're they're not attuned to doing. I think it's important for us to kind of demystify the rehearsal process. It's not just about, all right, here's a concert F, everybody. It's not right. It's not that.
Right.
It's about enjoying the process, enjoying the music. And that's genuinely what I do when I'm on the podium, I don't necessarily get into the nitty-gritty about all right, well, we're not all articulating that the same way. You're a little bit longer than this way.
Yeah.
And I think, sure, there's value to that. I try high school band.
Right.
I get it. I've played with drones before. I've had the metronome on. I've done all that. I don't know. I have a way more fun just having the image up here and then trying to like play the comparison game is like what sounds up here versus what's sounding out here. How do I get this to,
Right.
So the whole technicality of rehearsal is like, and this is like a whole other video.
Oh, 100%.
But
just approach teaching as an art in and of itself.
Everything that I've kind of ventured into and have had interest in, I've wanted to be good at, because there's an art at the highest level of anything. At the highest level of content creation, there is an art to it. The highest level of music, obviously, there is an art to it.
Yeah.
And teaching as well. There are incredible teachers who may not have like the best conducting chops, but there is an art in their rehearsal. There's an art in their teaching, and there's an art in the way that they lead their programs.
Are there any social media profiles that you personally enjoy, maybe that you want to recommend?
There's a lot of instrumental accounts of just people playing, people making covers, people just talking about their instruments. I find those accounts super interesting because it gives me insight into those instruments. That helps me as a conductor. That helps me, figure out what, idiomatic sound is, or even like stuff that's really out there, like extended technique stuff. Like I love watching those videos because it's like, I'm curious about it. And so I'll hit follow whenever it's something that piques my interest. There's like a recordings, like, so how does somebody make audio recordings? Like I was interested in that. So I hit follow on that account. There's been plenty of musicians that even outside of the classical realm, that I've been like, that's dope.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit follow just because I want to hear your like artistry. I want to hear your interpretation on this piece. And even though it's just like covers of stuff, it's covers like reimagined into a different style. And so I was like, that's dope.
So you're not limited, obviously, because we've talked about music outside of what we do.
Right.
So you're not limited.
But even people that think the same way that I do in terms of like, have you ever thought about this one thing and this one in this one thing, and then it's like a rabbit hole of just like the qualities of this thing. There's a dude that I was following in pandemic time that I would really enjoy his videos just because he'd be like, do you know this song? And then he would like talk about one thing in that song. And then I would just be like, no, I didn't even think about that. That's crazy.
You're like 10 minutes later. Like,
Yeah, I was like down rabbit hole. I watched like all of his other videos like right there just because I was so
wait,
interested.
who's that? Do you remember?
Oh man, I can't remember the name.
Like that is a pretty, now it seems to be emerging sort of trend or niche of music educators online who they're not just educating about, band or orchestra, all the stuff we do, but just talking about music as an experience. How to
that is an underrated skill.
100%.
Talking about music is an underrated skill, and I firmly believe that. I try to impart that thought onto the conducting students that are in conducting 1 and 2 here, because talking and being able to talk about music translates into rehearsal. It's not just about like this note is too short. I strongly believe that music should be talked more about in terms of feel rather than the oral sense, because, and this is something that I got from Omar when I took his pop harmony class, because it's like if you try to listen for these chord progressions, you're just not going to get it. You have to understand how 1 feels going to 4, how 4 feels going to 5, how 2 feels going to 5. That's a different 2 to 5 versus 4 to 5, different feel.
Yeah.
How does this secondary dominant feel? How does this applied chord feel in context?
And it might even be a feeling that's outside of words. It's just something that you
it's something that you recognize. But exactly. You innately recognize, I know that motion.
Yeah.
That's 1 to 2. That's 2 to 5. That's 5 to 1. I strongly believe that people should be able to talk about music, like in that sense. There's a really great video of Jacob Collier doing this exact thing, from like the most fundamental like 5-year-old child.
Yes. Okay. I know what you're talking about. Talk about harmony. Yeah.
He just talks about
and it's wild when he's sitting there talking about harmony, because they barely talk almost, and they're just like vibing, and you could tell Jacob wants to be really technical, but he's just like, Herbie's just like on another level. He's just like,
that's actually what I find most interesting about Jacob Collier, is like how he talks about music.
Yeah.
I find that to be the most inspiring.
Yeah.
His music obviously is very good, but it's like the way that he talks about music.
Yeah.
That's an art.
Yes.
Because he's so in tune with like what this is and what this feels like, not just, that's a, so it's 4. Yeah, he's talking about, it's just like, listen to how this tendency note feels as it goes to the, he's very much into that.
Is there any parting words you'd have for just anybody seeking to maybe occupy that space or enter that space? Anything that we haven't touched on?
People have asked me for conducting advice. They've asked me for like the person that asked me for advice going into like a master's audition. I find this almost like a cop-out, but I feel like it's not. It's truly a piece of information that I believe everybody should just figure out for themselves. Let's just be yourself. And that sounds like the most basic, like...
The reason it's basic is because it's absolutely...
Sounds like the most basic piece of advice. Yes. But I honestly believe, A, a lot of people don't know who they are.
Yes.
But also, it's like, it's not just about, I know who I am. I am Mike. But also, here are the things that I value. Here are the things that I like. Here's where I am in life. I may not be satisfied with where I currently am, but I know where I'm going, and I know how I'm going to get there. And that's, to me, what's most valuable. It's what I value, what I like, where I am and where I'm going, and how I'm going to get there. I just want to be me. I'm not trying to be what people think I should be. I'm not trying to be what society thinks that I should be. I'm just going to be Mike. We're going to do what I'm going to enjoy. And you're not with me or against me. It's just like, I'm going to continue to be in my lane and focus on me.
Yeah. Thanks for spending a little time with us today.
Of course.